I stood in the marble foyer of the Savoy, adjusting my grandmother's sapphire necklace in the gilded mirror. It was the 5th of March, the annual charity gala for Whitmore & Associates, one of London's most prestigious investment firms. My emerald green gown from Alexander McQueen fitted perfectly, a deliberate choice for what would become the most significant evening of my life. My name is Victoria Ashford. I'm 41 years old, and I've been married to James for 14 years. We met at Cambridge, both reading economics at Trinity College, two ambitious students with dreams of conquering the city. James is now senior partner at the firm, whilst I serve as head of strategic development at the same company. What most people don't know is that I'm the daughter of Lord Ashford, and my inheritance funded James's buy-in as partner. The Lancaster ballroom was breathtaking, with its Art Deco ceiling and crystal chandeliers casting diamonds of light across the room. I accepted a glass of Bollinger from a passing waiter, savoring the delicate bubbles. That's when I saw them. James stood near the terrace overlooking the Thames, and he wasn't alone. Emma Richardson, 29 years old, our new analyst, wore a scarlet dress I'd seen on his credit card statement, £5,000 from Harrods. Conversations around me gradually died. Eyes darted between me and them like spectators at Wimbledon. Lady Whitmore, the founder's wife, approached with an expression of sympathy. "Victoria, darling, perhaps you should—" I smiled serenely. "Thank you, Margaret, but I'm exactly where I need to be." I glided across the ballroom with the poise drilled into me at Cheltenham Ladies' College. Every step calculated, my posture impeccable. Years of deportment lessons finally serving their purpose. "Good evening, James. Good evening, Emma. What a stunning dress. From Harrods, isn't it? The designer floor?" James went pale. "Victoria, I didn't expect you. You said you were attending the charity dinner in Oxford." "The dinner finished early. You know how efficient Oxford committees can be." Emma flushed and instinctively gripped James's arm. The gesture wasn't lost on anyone. Lord Whitmore himself observed from his table, his brows furrowed behind his tortoiseshell spectacles. I made my way to the bar where Charles, who'd been serving at the Savoy for 40 years, prepared me a gin martini without my asking. "Needing fortification tonight, Mrs. Ashford?" "No, Charles. Celebration." The next hour passed like a chess match at the Garrick Club. I circulated amongst the guests, laughing at the appropriate moments, discussing the latest budget with senior partners. But I felt the tension mounting. Smartphones emerged discreetly, WhatsApp messages flying, the scandal of the century unfolding before their eyes. Simon Pemberton, James's chief rival for the chairmanship, approached. "Victoria, I'm terribly sorry about this. Unfortunate situation. If there's anything you need—" I touched his arm lightly. "Thank you, Simon. But I assure you, I have everything quite under control." At 9:30, Lord Whitmore took the microphone for his traditional address. He spoke of British excellence, our expansion to Hong Kong and Singapore, the prestigious clients we'd acquired. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. He announced that James was being considered for managing director of the entire firm. The applause was lukewarm, punctuated by awkward glances in my direction. James walked towards the stage, Emma still clinging to his arm like ivy to an oak. He began his speech, talking of vision, innovation, traditional British values. That's when I stood. The sound of my chair against the parquet floor resonated through the ballroom. All eyes turned to me. I approached the stage, my Manolo Blahniks clicking against the marble. "Forgive me, James, but I'd like to say a few words." James looked at me with pleading eyes. "Victoria, this really isn't the time." Lord Whitmore gestured for me to continue. "Please, Mrs. Ashford. After all, you've been part of the Whitmore family for so long." I took the microphone. My voice was crystal clear, every syllable perfectly enunciated. "Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I should like to take this opportunity to share something rather important with you all. As you may be aware, James and I are experiencing a somewhat delicate period. The silence was absolute. Even the waiters had frozen in place. What you don't know is that before our marriage, we signed a prenuptial agreement with Harbottle and Lewis, the most renowned family law solicitors in London. An agreement I had drafted by Sir Edmund Blackstone QC, who, as you may know, handled the Duke of Westminster's divorce. James turned white as Dover chalk. "Victoria, I beg you. This agreement stipulates that in the event of proven adultery, the guilty party forfeits all rights to the marital assets." The townhouse in Belgravia, the estate in the Cotswolds, the flat in Edinburgh, the investment portfolio worth £8 million, and most importantly, the shares in Whitmore and Associates. I produced an envelope from my mulberry clutch. I have here photographs, credit card statements, hotel bookings at Claridge's, 23 overnight stays in 4 months, always the same suite, always the same pattern. I also have sworn affidavits from 3 members of hotel staff, properly witnessed by a licensed private investigator. Emma had distanced herself from James and was attempting to blend into the crowd, but I wasn't finished. There's something else you should know, Lord Whitmore. Miss Richardson isn't merely an analyst. She's the daughter of Peter Richardson, founding partner of Richardson and Partners, your primary competitor. Rather fascinating that a young woman with access to all our confidential files should be so close to our greatest rival, wouldn't you say? The explosion of murmurs in the ballroom was deafening. Lord Whitmore stood abruptly. "Is this true, Miss Richardson?" Emma stammered. It's not what it seems. I never disclosed," I continued, relentless. "I've also discovered that 5 of our most valuable clients mysteriously moved to Richardson and Partners last month, the very clients Emma was managing. What an extraordinary coincidence." The ballroom doors opened. Sir Edmund Blackstone entered, accompanied by 2 junior barristers and a process server. He walked directly to James and handed him an envelope. "Mr. Ashford, you are hereby served with divorce proceedings on grounds of adultery. Given the overwhelming evidence, I suggest you secure excellent representation, though frankly, your prospects are rather dim." He then turned to Lord Whitmore. "My lord, Mrs. Ashford has also instructed me to inform you that she's tendering her resignation, effective immediately. She'll be joining the Rothschild Group as Managing Director of European Operations. They're delighted to welcome someone of her caliber and integrity." That's when James collapsed. He slumped into a chair, head in his hands. "Victoria, how could you?" "It was a mistake. I can explain everything." "A mistake?" I laughed, and the sound echoed through the ballroom. "A mistake lasting 6 months? A mistake costing £400,000 in gifts and holidays?" "No, James. The mistake was thinking I'd remain silent." I set down the microphone and walked towards the exit. Outside on the Strand, someone was waiting. Alexander Rothschild, heir to the banking dynasty. We'd been seeing each other discreetly for 8 months since I'd discovered James's affair. "How did it go?" he asked, wrapping me in his cashmere coat. Rather theatrical. Very British, actually. All terribly polite until it wasn't. The following weeks were a media whirlwind. The story circulated through every business club from Pall Mall to the Square Mile. James not only lost his position at Whitmore and Associates, but was suspended from the Law Society for gross professional misconduct. Emma faced charges of corporate espionage and breach of confidentiality. The divorce was swift. With the prenuptial agreement and evidence of adultery, the judge had no hesitation. I received the Belgravia house, the Cotswolds estate, the Edinburgh flat, and most importantly, James's shares in the firm, which I promptly sold to Simon Pemberton for a considerable sum. But the real surprise came 6 months later. I was in my new office at Rothschild's on St. James's when my assistant announced a visitor. It was Emma. She'd changed. The youthful arrogance had vanished, replaced by genuine humility. Her hair was pulled back in a simple chignon, her suit modest but well-tailored. "Mrs. Ashford, Victoria, might I have a word?" I invited her to sit. "What can I do for you, Emma?" I wanted to apologize, sincerely, and to thank you. "Thank me?" I raised an eyebrow. "You opened my eyes. I was foolish, manipulated. James promised me the world, but he only wanted the information I could provide. My father, he disowned me when everything came out. Says I've disgraced the family name. I observed this broken young woman. She reminded me of myself, 14 years earlier, when I'd believed marrying James was the pinnacle of achievement. What will you do now? I don't know. My career in London is finished. I'm thinking of moving to New York, starting fresh." I considered for a moment, then picked up the telephone. "Sarah, could you connect me to David Goldman at our Manhattan office? Tell him I have a candidate for the compliance training program." "Yes, I know it's unusual. Tell him it's a personal favor." Emma stared at me, incredulous. "Why are you doing this?" "Because we were both victims of the same man, and because everyone deserves a second chance. But Emma, this is your only opportunity. Don't waste it. She had tears in her eyes. I won't let you down. I promise. A year later, I received a letter from New York. Emma was excelling in her new role and had just been promoted. She was engaged to a Columbia professor and seemed to have found peace. James, meanwhile, vanished from London society. Last I heard, he was working as a financial consultant for a small firm in Leeds. His reputation destroyed, his career in tatters. And me? I flourished as never before. At Rothschild's, I tripled my salary and found my true calling. Alexander and I married at our estate in the Cotswolds, surrounded by roses and those we held dear. This time, no complicated contracts. We didn't need them. Sometimes, when I pass the Savoy, I think back to that March evening, the moment I took that microphone and reclaimed my life. It wasn't revenge, it was justice. It was the moment I ceased being a victim and became the author of my own story. 2 years later, I received a letter that moved me deeply. It came from Elizabeth, James's mother. This elegant, cultured woman had always treated me with kindness and respect. "My dear Victoria," she wrote in her precise copperplate, "I know I have no right to contact you after what my son put you through, but I wanted you to know that I always recognized what a remarkable woman you are. James was a fool to lose you. I told him so, but he was too proud to listen. I have something for you, something that rightfully belongs to you." In the envelope was a key and the address of a safety deposit box at Coutts. Inside, I found the Ashford family jewels, magnificent pieces dating back to Georgian times, and a letter from James's father, written shortly before his death. To my son's wife, the letter read, "If you're reading this, it means James has made the mistake I warned him against. He's let his pride destroy what was most precious. These jewels belong to my great-grandmother, a formidable woman who survived the Napoleonic Wars. They deserve to be worn by someone who honors her courage. Take care, Victoria, and don't let my son's betrayal dim your light." I wept reading those words. Tears of gratitude and closure. Even in his own family, there had been people who saw my worth. Today, 5 years after that memorable gala, I sit in my corner office overlooking St. James's Park. My daughter Charlotte, 4 years old, plays in the nursery we've created especially for her. Alexander joins me for lunch at the Ivy every Tuesday, a tradition we've established. I've founded a charity, the Phoenix Trust, offering legal and psychological support to women trapped in manipulative relationships. We've already helped over 600 women reclaim their lives. Last week, I was invited to deliver a lecture at Cambridge, my alma mater. The topic? Female leadership and the importance of integrity in business. The lecture theater was packed to capacity. When I stepped up to the podium, I saw dozens of young women with eyes bright with ambition and hope. But I also saw older women, some with that look I knew too well, the look of those who'd been betrayed, humiliated, yet still searching for the strength to rise. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, 5 years ago, I experienced the worst and best evening of my life. Worst, because I had to publicly confront my husband's betrayal. Best, because it was the night I decided never again to let anyone else define my worth. I spoke for an hour about courage, resilience, but also forgiveness. Not the forgiveness that excuses everything, but the kind that liberates. I told Emma's story, how she'd rebuilt herself. I even mentioned James, without bitterness, as an example of what happens when one confuses power with manipulation. The standing ovation was overwhelming, but what touched me most were the women who approached me afterwards. One, a philosophy don, confided she'd just left her abusive husband inspired by my story. Another, a law student, said she'd decided to specialize in family law to help other women. That evening, driving home through London's illuminated streets, I reflected on the journey, this city that had witnessed my rebirth. I thought about the obstacles overcome, the victories won. Alexander was waiting with Charlotte asleep in his arms. "How was it?" he whispered. "Inspiring," I replied. "I feel as though I've come full circle. You changed lives tonight," he said, kissing me, "as you changed mine." Tucking Charlotte into bed, I whispered, "You'll be strong, my darling. You'll be independent, and you'll never let anyone tell you you're worth less than you truly are." The story of my confrontation at the Savoy has become legend in London's business circles. It's told at the London Business School, cited in leadership seminars. But for me, it's not a story of revenge. It's a story of rebirth. Recently, I gave an interview to the Financial Times. The journalist asked if I had any regrets. I thought carefully before answering. I regret nothing, I said, not even the years lost with James, because those years taught me who I truly am. They prepared me to become the woman I am today, a woman who knows her worth and is no longer afraid to show it to the world. The journalist then asked what advice I'd give to women in similar situations. My answer was simple. Don't wait for someone to give you justice. Take it, with elegance, with intelligence, but take it. Your life belongs to you. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. A few months ago, I encountered a former colleague from Whitmore and Associates. She told me they now use my story as a case study in their ethics training. The irony made me smile. But the biggest surprise came 3 weeks ago. I received a message on LinkedIn. It was James. After 5 years of silence. Victoria, he wrote, I know I have no right to contact you. I simply wanted to say that I finally understand. I understand what I lost, what I destroyed through my stupidity and arrogance. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted to say you were right. About everything. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be. I read the message 3 times, then I deleted it. Not from anger, but because it belonged to a closed chapter of my life. James was part of my past. My present and future lay elsewhere. Tonight, as I write these words in my journal, Charlotte sleeps peacefully in the next room. Alexander works in his study on plans for our new house in the Lake District. Life is sweet, full, rich with meaning. If someone had told me 5 years ago that the worst humiliation of my life would lead to my greatest happiness, I wouldn't have believed them. But that's exactly what happened. That night in March, when I took that microphone and revealed the truth, I did more than destroy a toxic marriage. I built the foundation of my new life. A life where I'm no longer defined by my husband, but by my own achievements. A life where love is based on mutual respect rather than manipulation. A life where I can look my daughter in the eye and tell her with certainty that she must never accept less than she deserves. That's the real victory, not the spectacular revenge, not James's public humiliation, not even the millions recovered. The real victory is transforming pain into strength, betrayal into liberation, an ending into a new beginning. And when women ask me how I found the courage to do what I did, I always give the same answer. The courage was already there, in me, in you. It was simply waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. And sometimes that moment comes when you hit rock bottom. Because when you're at the bottom, the only way is up. My story isn't unique. Thousands of women experience similar situations every day. The difference is that I had the means, the education, the support necessary to defend myself. That's why I created the Phoenix Trust, so that every woman, regardless of her situation, can access the tools she needs to reclaim her life. Next week, we're opening our 4th refuge, this time in Manchester. We already have plans for Edinburgh and Cardiff. My dream is that one day, no woman will feel trapped in a toxic relationship for lack of means or support. Alexander sometimes teases me, saying I've turned my anger into an empire. He's not wrong, but it's an empire built on mutual aid, respect, and dignity. An empire where every woman is sovereign of her own life. That evening at the Savoy, 5 years ago, I learned a fundamental lesson. We cannot control others' actions, but we can always control our reaction. And sometimes, the best reaction isn't to leave quietly, but to leave with fanfare, ensuring justice is served. I'm no saint. I don't pretend my revenge was pure or altruistic. It was personal, visceral, necessary. But what began as revenge transformed into something greater. A mission, a purpose, a reason for being. Today, when I look in the mirror, I see an accomplished, fulfilled woman, loved and respected. I see a mother who can serve as an example to her daughter. I see a wife who is her husband's equal. I see a business leader who uses her power to help others. And all thanks to a man who thought he could trample me without consequences. The irony is delicious. James wanted everything. His career, his mistress, his submissive wife. He lost it all. I simply wanted respect. I gained so much more. If I had to summarize these 5 years in one sentence, it would be this. The best revenge is a life well lived. and my life today is extraordinary. Last week, Charlotte found an old photograph from my wedding to James whilst playing in my study. "Mummy, who's this man?" she asked in her sweet little voice. I looked her in the eye and replied, "Someone who taught me an important lesson, darling. He taught me that our worth doesn't depend on anyone else. We decide how much we're worth." She nodded with that wisdom only children possess and said, "Should we say thank you to him then?" I smiled. "In a way, yes. We should say thank you because it's true. Without James's betrayal, I would never have discovered my true strength. I would never have met Alexander, never had Charlotte, never built the empire I have today." Sometimes the most painful moments in our lives are the ones that lead us to our true selves. This is my story. The story of a woman who transformed humiliation into triumph, pain into power, an ending into a magnificent new beginning. And if there's one thing I want every woman reading this to know, it's this. Within you lies a strength you cannot even imagine. It's simply waiting for the right moment to emerge. And when that moment arrives, be ready to take everything that's rightfully yours, with style, with class, but above all, with the absolute knowledge of your worth. Life is too short to accept less than we deserve, and we women, my dears, deserve the entire world.